Brian Callahan met with the media today. Some random information about. He also has a dog named Ben, if you haven't noticed.
Ben's the true superstar.
Yes, man. Ben used to come to travel baseball games. That's the best dog, man. He's a good boy.
He is a good boy.
Brian Callahan, talking about setting up young quarterbacks for success in the NFL.
But I just think there's a couple of factors at play for some of the things that happen in the league. I think one, the quarterback position is the toughest position to play in sports. It's really difficult to play quarterback, and then it's even more difficult to play at a level that everybody wants their quarterback to play at. The top 4 or 5 guys in the league, everybody's searching for that. It's really hard to do, and there's some of the factors I think are. There's the economic factor of having a young quarterback on a rookie deal that allows for financial flexibility. So you can build a better roster and not pay the quarterback what they're getting paid now, $60 million plus now, as a part of the whole picture of building a team. I think college football and NFL football are so dramatically different right now. There's very few like pro-style offenses in college. There's a lot of things about what those guys do in college that works really well in college, and then there's a whole different level when you get here. The biggest thing for me, like the protections, understanding protections, how to protect yourself, how to set protections, the pressures you see in the high leverage spots in games. So those are just some minor things, but there's also then now the patience part, which, as we all know, as I said the other day, there's not a lot of patience in pro sports in general, and sometimes it does take a little bit of time to learn all of those things. And then there's you're balancing winning with developing, and that's a very, very hard thing to do in pro football, probably in every professional sport, because fans want success and ownerships want success, and all of those things are all normal. They're part of it, but I think sometimes those things conflict and they run into each other, where you're trying to win because people's jobs are on the line. And then you're trying to develop because guys need development. So it's a really tricky thing, but I think it also stems mostly from the fact that it's just such a difficult position to play, and there's so much demand on that position that you have to play a good amount of football to learn all of those lessons, I think. So I could talk about this for a really long time. I won't bore everybody, but there's a lot of things that I think go into it.
I mean, this plays right into our conversation with the Colts and Anthony Richardson as well, Yep. Just young quarterbacks.
Yep. Bryce Young. I mean, some guys have, like Jaden Daniels, man, the legend just grows week to week.
Right.
With that guy.
But that is, it's also not the normal, right? The CJ Stroud, not the normal. Like, you see lots of young quarterbacks. And it also depends, honestly, on what they did in college and what kind of systems they ran and got used to in college, too. Yep. Which is why I think probably a part of me thought that Will Levis would be better at the transition.
Oh, I definitely did.
Because of Liam Cohen and his junior year at Kentucky and what he ran.
He was calling plays. It wasn't like a picture of something.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, he was actually calling plays. I totally I took that in terms of my personal mental evaluation of what he might be, but he just hadn't gotten there yet.
So where does it change though? Like when do you start having the patience and the leash being long enough by the franchise, and even more on top of that, the fans? Because you got to allow them to grow. You got to experience as the best teacher. Or are people okay with going out getting older quarterbacks and not pressing the panic button if they're not getting it done? Saying, throw the young guy in there. Why'd you draft him then? Like, let him get experience on the fly. You know what I'm saying?
Well, Slay, to that point, Brian Callahan today talking about sticking to the development
look at this.
of a player versus prioritizing winning.
We're in a production business, and that's at some point you reach that apex where we do have to win or show that we're improving. All of those things are all a part of it, and you really want to make sure that the rest of the team feels the same way too. You reach a certain point where if they don't feel like that gives them the best chance to win. That's always the hardest part, because you got a bunch of guys that put their bodies on the line every week too, or it means something to them, and they don't take they want them held to the same standards. You know, if your position is not playing well, usually what happens? Find somebody else. And so sometimes that you get to a certain point where that also happens, where, you know, guys are fighting and trying and fighting through injuries and playing hard, and they just sometimes want to make sure that the rest of it's in line with that too. And so that's where it gets tricky if you're not playing well and you're trying to develop and still win. So again, these are like really deep philosophical conversations for a Wednesday, but those are all the things that go into it.
I'm gonna be honest, man.
Really interesting, though.
Yeah, and playing, like, I used to look for teams. And of course, when you get older, it's different. But as I got later in the stages of my playing career, I was wanting to be on teams with other vets. Like, give me one or two young guys, rookies that's developing, but give me vets, man. Because for that sole purpose, I ain't got time to go through this, man. I ain't got time to have 8 rookies and me be the guy to lead them, and not as an elder statesman.
You know what's interesting? You guys mentioned C.J. Stroud, and for good reason, but this year's numbers a little bit off from last year. He's got a higher completion percentage, but yards per attempt is down almost a full yard, and he's thrown 1 fewer interception so far this year than he had all of last season.
Sophomore slump.
Or people get film on you, and now they're an underdog in New York, and he doesn't play as well on the road as he does at home. So we'll see. But the Jets minus 2.5, I'm not, as Todd says, I'm not running to the window for that. But it's odd that they're an underdog, right?
I already ran to the one.
You did? With the mean green?
Did they have to win this game?
They're 2-6. Houston's without Stephon Diggs out for the year.
You ever seen the team implode? You will see
and Nico's out.
They do.
Yeah. All right. Well,
so sticking with the conversation though with Callahan, and I thought all of his comments today were yes, deep for a Wednesday, but kind of peels back the curtain a little bit, and was asked too, are the best franchises the ones that can stick to developing that young talent despite having early success?
Yeah, I think when you look across the league and you look at the organizations that believe in development, that believe in continuity, that do things without being overly reactionary to a negative dip, a down game, a down season. Those are the organizations you tend to see sort of in the mix most of the time. I don't need to point anybody out, but I think, there's a lot of places out there that are willing to weather some negativity, some impatience from the outside world, knowing that they believe in what they're doing and how they're doing it. So those are things I think when you look around, you see that there is some correlation between those things when you have some patience and are willing to go through some development at the end of the day.
Now, is Will Levis a guy that's worth going through the development for, is the big question, which is why I think we have to see him play sooner rather than later.
These were really big picture philosophical answers.
That's really
not
good.
necessarily about detail with regard to what is, currently happening today.
I think that I love it.
And don't read into it either of him talking about Levis, that Levis is a guy worth developing.
No, he's speaking in general.
Yeah, he's speaking in
right. That's why I wanted to make that point.
Yeah. But so to bring it back, micro, we right here with the Titans. If we were talking about just them, my question would be, would this fan base be okay, or the franchise okay with blocking out the noise? Like, we've been hearing people come through, and I think it's nuts. That's why I made the Wash Away toast what it was last week. Like, people talking about fire Miss Amy. Like, what the hell are we talking about? You feel what I'm saying? And I mean, I know it's a small portion.
I can't hear that and not laugh.
Yeah, it's a small portion, but it's like, what are we talking about? Like, when whatever fix happens this year won't lead to us winning a Super Bowl next year, or even the AFC Championship game next year. But the steps can be taken to move towards that. Like we all said, listen, I get overzealous as a fan without question, but we said in the offseason, getting ready to going into the season, because of what we see on paper, let's try our best not to move the goalposts. You know what I'm saying? And now, it feels like that's what we're doing. Instead of being patient as fans and trying to see what can be put together to move in the right direction, man. Like, I don't – and it's tough to do because week in and week out, you still want to support. You know what I mean? If you're the franchise of your fan base, and you got to have it. But it's like, man, it's got to be a level of understanding. And that's tough as a fanatic.
Well said.
Thank you. I got a degree.
Yes, you did. You worked hard for that thing.